Hello and welcome to Moth News. My name is Keith Walsh. Today we're joined by Julie Grace, whistleblower, former public servant and the author of Abuse of Power, Because Councils Can. Julie exposed serious wrongdoing inside Galway City Council, and for that she has paid a heavy price. It's been over 6 years since she made a formal protected disclosure, and she's still waiting for justice. Her case has gone all the way to the European Parliament, where she laid bare the Irish state's failure to protect whistleblowers. We wanted to talk to Julie, not only about her own story, but about what it says about how Ireland treats those who speak up, and why that should concern every taxpayer and citizen. Julie, you're very welcome to Moth News. Very grateful for you for joining us.
Yep. And very happy to speak with you, Keith, because without the media, whistleblowers have no function, they have no voice. So we are totally dependent on responsible and ethical journalism to further everybody's cause. It's not just, we have spoken for people who don't have a voice. We didn't know whistleblower that I have met has done it for personal gain. In fact, they got personal punishment, retaliation, the usual. But, you know, some fine day people will appreciate what whistleblowers are doing. And I'd like to straight away remind people that we have an elected Dáil, and we have a Seanad. And the whole debacle recently on the nursing homes, which most people in the country could, I suppose, align themselves with, because they would have visited nursing homes, maybe have relatives there or some such. Not many of them would have any concern without the feature as it happened on RTE, and when the horrors of abuse was put before people. And I contend that every elected representative have a hand in that abuse, because their silence and acquiescence is confirmation that this is okay. And had the whistleblower not spoken up, had the whistleblower not the benefit of responsible media, this would never come to light. And as we speak, and I doubt that it has dealt with all the abuse in nursing homes, but I just make the point that it's a tangible measure of where we are at in society. Unless it gets brutal and graphic and affects ourselves, we don't want to know.
Yeah, I mean, the nursing home thing is a very good example, because possibly we could all end up there at some point. We're all going to get old. We're all going to be affected by this. And it says, the thing I'm trying to get across to people is the way our elected officials act, whether it's them making the decisions or possibly civil servants making the decisions, whatever it is, that is how Ireland is behaving. So if the Seanad are voting to lock down the information about, mother and baby homes for 60 years or whatever it is, they're doing it on our behalf. So that is us as a country. So all of the things that are wrong about the country, how we treat our most vulnerable people, that is who we are as a country. There seems to be this idea that that's the government, they are our representatives. And it's really important that we have that very clear in our minds, whether we think that the politicians don't actually have a say, and it's the senior civil servants, and that's all been, they have a plan and they stick to it. And whether we believe that or not, we still have to understand that this is us as a country, and this is how we are treating each other. And it's for me, it leads to this feeling in the country, this I get this feeling that people are feeling very restricted, very, there's a toxic atmosphere. There's people are just, everything feels off, and that's because of how we treat our people. And that is, yes, it's the government, they're making the decisions, but they're doing it on our behalf. And sometimes we forget that.
I couldn't agree more with you, and I've always contended that. And I come from the west of Ireland, and in the old days, if a farmer was at the market and he didn't have everything in order, the old legal term was, well, what's the name on the cart? Well, the name of the cart for the Department of Health is the Minister for Health. The name of the cart for the environment is likewise The name of the cart for justice is, again, the Justice Minister. And yes, we have an elected representatives who are allegedly representing us. Allegedly, and I use the word allegedly, because I still contend that every elected member has a responsibility, and they are party to what is going on. They're shoring up corruption. And they will use the party whip, we must do this. To me, so many of the party people, they're shy of coming forward. They're like backward children hiding behind the Victorian granny's petticoats, and they're no better than that, Keith.
But do you think that's because they know deep down that their role is just that, a role, and actually what they do day to day is sort of ineffective? I heard recently somebody, a person, probably someone a member of the whistleblowers group, said something like, it was a senior civil servant turned to somebody and spoke about a minister and said, sure, that lad thinks that his office has some power here. There does seem to be, I did speak to somebody recently, it wasn't Alamon, it was Raymond, his surname escapes me at the moment. They were the guys involved in the farming VAT scandal. Yeah, so Raymond said to me that he was talking about this 1987 when Charles Haughey had a meeting with his senior civil servant, and they changed how Ireland was run. So that basically my version of what he was saying was that it doesn't really matter if you're elected. You don't really have any power because everything is set out and the senior civil servants will make the decision. I mean, that seems kind of...
That's not absolutely... I don't buy all that, because every representative has a direct line to the minister, and if they haven't, they should have. Now, remember, Keith, there are no volunteers in Leinster House, so they have direct access to the minister. They have a way of connecting with them. They have a way of objecting. And when John McGuinness raised the matter in the Dáil of the Grace case, he had very little support. Just a few jumped up and down with PQs, but prior to that, he didn't get support. It's as simple as that. They walk the other way. And ask any other whistleblower, the general public looks the other way. But they got a little bit of a horror shock when they saw that their own grannies and their own mothers and whatever were being abused in nursing homes. And I bring it back to that. I bring it back to Peter Behan. Peter Behan, with the great Martin McMahon, founded the Whistleblowers Group. Peter Behan works in a non-medical role in the hospice. For years, we saw the hospice, the fundraising. If we got a little bit more money, we could buy more morphine pumps. This was the mantra in Galway. I don't know what about Dublin, but they kept asking for more donations so they could buy more morphine pumps for all of us when we come to the end of life, and we hope we won't have so much pain. Peter discovered that, there was huge funding coming, great voluntary donations, including a house in France. And what happened? Senior management were siphoning it off. And that man took on that hospice organisation. And he won. And he got the financial controller set down. Mind you, they gave him plenty of time to clear his desk and all of that. But that aside, when you stop and count the value of whistleblowers, which nobody's looking at, but when you look at the real value that gentleman brought into that hospice, think of the number of morphine pumps that would not be there today without Peter Behan. Think about the soft supports besides that. And that is the value. But I haven't heard anybody, any elected member, come out and thank him. I haven't heard the Minister of Health come out and thank him. Nobody says, thank you, Peter.
Why are we supporting corruption? Why do we always, and this is our elected officials making this decision on our behalf as citizens of this country. They're making the decision to not be transparent. So you take the care home situation. There's no transparency with the care homes. People die during COVID, and families are still asking for answers. And like what I want as a citizen of Ireland, I want people working in the care homes. I want them to be able to speak freely about how they find the conditions. I want, like, why? Surely we can, surely, I mean, apparently there's a bit of money going around now. Why are we siding with corruption and not clamping down on corruption and using the money to improve our care system, like the HSC, the Children's Hospital, everything, at the very, very basic idea of how this country's being run. It's the people who are running this country are really, really bad at their jobs.
Well, Keith, fish rots from the head down. So what do you think you're getting trickled down?
Yeah.
Politics,
corruption.
politics,
Are
yeah.
you saying that it starts?
I'm saying the corruption is coming from the top down. I have witnessed it. I have seen it. And you know, when the transposition, when the EU asked Ireland to transpose this new directive, the 2019 directive that they sat on the pot for so long on, and when they were being fined, they decided they would do something, but it was only something. It was tokenism. And other whistleblowers and myself were invited in before the Finance Committee to give the lived experience. We made suggestions as to what would enhance and protect whistleblowers. Not one of those suggestions was taken on board. And that was Michael McGrath was the minister at the time with responsibility. He's now gone to be the European person in charge of, overseeing the rule of law in other countries, where he went out of his way to set aside anything that we proposed. Nothing that we proposed. Noel McGree and I spent a lot of time, going through this forensically. We made our presentation. We got some hearing, but nothing was taken on board. In fact, we went the way to make sure it didn't happen the way we suggested.
Yeah, That's the other thing is there's this piecemeal thing where they go, oh, let's just let them do a bit. Like they got you to do all that work and then just completely ignored it. That happens all the time. Like they carry out like they put committees. They have these we'll look into it. Nothing ever changes and nothing ever is improved. And you look at what happened in the care homes in COVID, and people are saying, well, that's COVID. And I know even maybe the Taoiseach, possibly Taoiseach minister, 3 separate people, elected officials, said that the families looking for answers about what happened to their loved ones in nursing homes during COVID, and they described it as a witch hunt. They described Irish people looking for answers about what happened to their loved ones. Some people weren't even sure that it was their actual mother or father or whatever in the coffin. And they're looking for transparency. They're looking for answers. They have suggestions as to how it could be improved. And they're calling it a witch hunt. Let me tell you, anybody watching now, and I know you're aware of this, Julie, these things are still going on. So you have an opportunity. We have a government who have an opportunity to sit down and talk to people and listen to what they have to say and implement the suggestions. I mean, they don't have to implement all the suggestions, but to improve this country, it's the size of this country. It should be so easy to run it well. And the more I talk to people like yourself, the more I look into the care home stuff, the more I look into the HSC and and I've come to this as an everyman, as a man on the street, a fella in the pub. And I'm like, I did not believe a lot of the things that I've been reading about. And now I'm going, I cannot believe the level of corruption in this country. I am absolutely flabbergasted. It's hard for me to believe it. But
it's hard for a normal person to actually, for a normal person with normal values,
to believe that people will do that.
It is very, and I saw it firsthand. At first hand, I've seen, and I will call it straight, it is evil. There's an element of evil there.
Well, of course it's evil, because if you're giving a contract to a private nursing home operator who are taking dividends from that larger company, the people on the board, in France or wherever they are, wherever they live, I'm sure they've lots of money. But if they're scrimping and saving and cutting costs, and that ultimately meant that people died in their nursing homes because of lack of care. I've heard of people not being given their dinner, because just being left beside them, and not the staff. And we're not going to blame the staff here either, but that the staff aren't feeding them when they should. So you could effectively say, well, that person was starved to death. That person was over medicated. For me, the person that's making money from these cuts is involved in a crime, a serious crime. And when you say evil, yes, it is, because people are dying and children are having operations they shouldn't have. Children are missing out on operations they should have because of waiting lists, because maybe consultants aren't doing their job properly. So every area, every facet of this country, every department, every place you go for help, every place you go when you need something from the government, the stuff that is built with our taxpayers' money, they make an absolute hames of it. And it's so bad that people are dying and it's ruining lives, and they're causing trauma. And they talk about mental health and they talk about mental well-being. And if I see any more government officials getting involved in any mental health strategies, I swear to God, I'll go in and punch them myself personally. I won't really. I don't believe in violence, but can they not see the damage this is doing? Do they not care? And ultimately, I go back to what you said, it's evil.
As we speak, they're digging up the old graves in Tuam. Yeah. Some people agree with it, some don't. The fact is, in those days, the local authority was responsible for burial grounds. The nuns were contractors to the council. There were elected politicians. I've seen minutes where councillors, and two very prominent councillors who later went on to be TDs and would have political dynasties trailing behind them, were on those boards. They knew what was going on. Did they speak up? No. They knew how many children were dying. Did they open their mouths? No. And they were in total control because they agreed on the stipend that the nuns were being given for looking after those children. So what has changed, Keith, in 60 years? Nothing. In 60 years, we will be exhuming bodies to see what the people during COVID, when they were victims, what did they die from? Think about it. We've learned nothing. It's the whole thing is cyclical.
And that's the thing, is like, you look at the Shannon and you look at a vote to, keep information private. I think the last vote was about the information coming out of the Tuam mother and baby home, and they voted to lock down this information for 60 years, whatever. When you look at that, you have to join the dots. You have to go, the church are responsible for this. Okay, the nuns are responsible for this. The nuns cannot, and the church cannot and could not act alone. They could not act either with elected officials turning away, looking the other way, or being actively involved. So if you're talking about a Fine Gael or a Fianna Fáil politician, who were the parties in charge at that time? Who looked the other way?
Mainly. Well, I know there were Fianna Fáil councillors on it. I'm not knocking Fianna Fáil, knocking
this is what we need to be doing. This is what we need to be looking at.
We need to hold people accountable. But it doesn't suit, you see. Don't embarrass the minister. Don't embarrass the families. But they were directly involved. And remember that the nuns were contractors to the council. That's my point. And the council were in charge of that home. Not the bishops, not the priests, the council. And, the bishops and the priests couldn't have done what they did without help from the council.
And that's why this information is being kept from the general public.
That's why. And I don't know how true it is, but I have been reliably informed that there were figures and records not made available to the inquiry.
So we continue. I mean, the 3 Ds, obviously, when people, want answers, they deny, destroy, delay.
Die if you can.
What's that?
Die if you can.
Hopefully,
you'll be dead. So,
we'll just wait till they die. That's fine. I have some experience of that myself at the moment with my own discussions I'm having with RT. But why this does not work, and we you mentioned it there. Every 40 years or every 30 years, some Taoiseach, some elected official has to stand up in the Dáil and apologise for the way this was handled. And we continue. And you talk about the Grace case. We currently have something very similar happening, very similar to the Grace case. So as the politician was standing up and saying, this, we apologise for what happened and this will never happen, it was actually happening. So we continue to do the same thing. We continue to, transparency is not in the dictionary in the Dáil. They've ripped that page out. They don't want transparency. They don't want, it goes back to the, our running of mental institutions. It goes back to, I don't know what it is. It's like, it's a shame that we just can't, maybe it's not a shame. It's literally just the corruption. And we're so corrupt that we can never really properly look at it. There'll always be redacted parts. There will always be bits missing. There'll always be information withheld. We can't look at it properly because of the legacy of Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael or certain politicians, or my dad was the minister and he said it was okay, or my dad was on the council and he said it was okay. So we're allowing corruption to happen, and we're still covering up for legacy corruption while brand new corruption is taking place today. It's sad.
Well, it's the protecting of egos. You know, you must protect the ego.
Yes. So could it be as simple as we don't embarrass the minister, or is somebody taking money, or is there organizations who have a lot of money who control the ministers? You know, are there civil servants? Why are civil servants making these decisions? What's in it for them? What do they benefit? Are they literally there saying, well, you know, is it like the royal family when you watch, you know, the drama, and you see the press officer or the aide to the king, queen, and he's saying, well, we cannot, you know, we have to bury this because we cannot have this embarrassment. Is it about control?
Well, I suppose so many civil servants have been there for so long, and they do believe that they are the ministers themselves. They believe they are the people in charge. And again, I blame the minister. It's the Carol Toner principle. I met, in saying that, not all ministers are bad. I met with Dick, my story goes back actually 20 years ago since Breach died, but I met with Dick Roche, who was Minister for the Environment at the time, because I got shafted because I wouldn't falsify documentation, wouldn't commit perjury, etc. I met with Dick Roche. And Dick Roche went about resolving that with Galway City Council. But let me tell you, the officials at Galway City Council were more powerful than the minister.
Yeah, that's shocking, isn't it?
And he was I would put it, you know, I still say he was very honourable. He was interested. He knew the story. And he was quite shocked. He had his own opinion on councils. But he was one of the ministers that was not afraid to meet me. He met me face to face.
But why is it then that we have this country where, I mean, you know, even if people aren't making money and, you know, and buying houses and putting money somewhere under the mattress, it's corrupt? Because when we see somebody, I have my own personal story of somebody who was elected as a council official and started talking about buildings that were happening in this certain county, and schools were being built, and she questioned who got the contract and how was that obtained. She started asking questions, and within the space of about 2 years, her business was audited. It had never been audited before. It was audited 3 times in the space of 2 years. She was stopped more times by Gardaí, just, you know, not for doing anything, but just, just so when you see other departments rowing in, is somebody making a phone call and saying this person's being a bit of a...
Yes.
I've
seen it done.
People are being harassed by the state for speaking the truth.
Well, the wagons are circled. They must protect themselves, and they'll do whatever it takes to protect themselves. They will tell any lie, but their best instrument are the open access to legal services. They can hide behind legal services forever and a day, and they can keep going back to court and going back to court. That's what they do. I mean, I took the council into the High Court, you know, and I'm very pleased because my good name was upheld. But the law wasn't there in relation to basically the council can, you know, advertise for a lorry driver needing a HGV license, and effectively they can hire a manicurist, because there's a gap between the applying and the getting of the funding and the employment of the person. I mean, I was doing a job for so many years. I wrote the first handbook and it was used by many councils in the country. I was being interviewed for my own job, which was being made more permanent. The adverts were placed in December. The interviews have been held in March. And I knew the outcome of the interviews in January, because it was decided. And what they do is they bring in some external mates from, in this case, it was Limerick and Clare, who, you know, they called an interview. It wasn't. It was a scathing attack. And I got the decision on that from the judge. It was the chairman of the interview board was called. He acted in a non-gentlemanly fashion, but it didn't stop him going on to be county manager in an adjoining county, because that's the way the system works. It's okay, Johnny, I'll send for you. You'll get your travel up and bring up Monica there, and she can come up with you, but she can claim as well. That's what they do. You have no idea of the corruption or the level of abuse of public funding that there is out there. There is no, and the one word you do not mention in any of this is accountability. Do not mention. Yeah, it's like the holy water and the devil syndrome.
Right. We kind of got into it there. We got stuck into it, which is great. But I want to go back a little bit for people who might not know you or might be seeing you for the first time or seeing you being interviewed for the first time. Like, can you take us back to your own story and what led you to? You've talked a little bit about there, but just what led you to becoming a whistleblower?
Well, I went to work for Galway City Council. Prior to that, I returned to work when my family were reared. I worked as a local welfare officer with the Western Health Board as it was then. Then as I said, I got a more permanent position full-time with the Galway City Council as a revenue collector, which I loved. I collected rent on the revenue flats and Galway, everything else. And then the revenue collectors have been taken off the ground. So there's a new post of tenant liaison officers because I wouldn't have known the tenants. And I was a link between the council and the tenants for many matters. I would do housing assessments, meet people where they were at, if they were in need of something. I was a link, basically providing a lot of social support, a lot of soft support, setting up residents associations. As I said, wrote the handbook. In the meantime, I trained, I'm one of the few professional housing managers in the country. I qualified as a social housing manager, which most people don't like social housing. I love people. I like housing. Myself and my husband built our first house together. I have expert building knowledge, Keith. I can build a house from here from the get-go. Yeah.
If you build a house with your husband, you definitely become an expert.
We built several houses. And he did that along with working. So we're rafters.
Yeah.
But I love that kind of thing. And
yeah, but I presume you were the housing manager that people were okay meeting because you were you weren't necessarily, from the sounds of what I've read, you weren't necessarily on the council, like you weren't going there on the council side. You were there to see what the problem was and see if you could fix it.
That's right, and sort it. And I'm also a qualified mediator. I've done bits of mediation work. But I'm a realist. I loved my job. But a new senior official came into the council. She came in from another section and she had difficulty with me because she told me one morning, I went in to have something sorted and she said to me, and I'm quoting what she said, "Your effing problem is you think the tenants are your own family." And I said, I don't. I treat them much better than my own family because I'm paid to. Ask my own family. But that was the attitude she had. The woman was, she's not there now. She wanted me out because she felt that I was too soft with the tenants, because I had a humanity, and because I wouldn't be vicious towards people. Everyone's a different place in life. We all have different skills. And I'm so grateful for the family that I was born into, because we weren't wealthy, but I would say adequately resourced. And I likewise married a man who was able to support me from his hard work and everything else. But I would see myself as being almost, and I don't mean this in a facetious way, almost privileged. And I can empathize with somebody who wouldn't have had the opportunities that I might have had. I understand where people are at. I understand how people have lack of skill, lack of opportunity, lack of money, lack of education, lack of so much.
That empathy seems to be disappearing in Ireland.
Well, I can tell you, that was one thing that when I worked at Galway City Council, when I showed empathy, and going back to what I was asked to do, when I was asked to do something extremely wrong, a tenant called Breach Cummins was trying to exercise her housing rights. Breach was too educated for her own good. She was a former journalist, you know. She was only 48. She ended up with a disability, which left her back in Galway. She was dependent on social services. She was dependent on the Council for Housing. She was dependent on lots of support like that. But she was an extremely intelligent and articulate woman. She only wanted to get her housing rights. But she kept, meticulous copies of up and down. If the workmen were supposed to be there, 9 times out of 10 they didn't come when they were supposed to. All that type of stuff. And it was all done to frustrate her because she was too articulate. But anyway, she tried and she tried and she tried. And then she contacted a local city councillor, and the city councillor came to her flat. And they describe her flat as being an apartment. It wasn't. It was a half an old 40s house, small. Anyway, the councillor, who was a highly educated person, read all the correspondence and advised her to go to her solicitor and take a civil equity bill against the council. This is to a woman now who's living on social welfare, but she did anyway. Yeah. And that was her complete and utter downfall, because I was brought into the room when the council got that correspondence, and I will just tell you, I was in this office with the Director of Services and Housing, the housing officer, I can still remember it, yeah, and the housing engineer, and the council solicitor, and myself. So when the council engineer asked the Director of Services, what were they going to do about this, or how were they going to address it? He said, we won't. He said, we will evict her. And that's why the solicitor is here today. Now, they didn't have any evidence against her. They were going to evict her for antisocial behaviour, because the woman next door to her there was a bit of a neighbourhood dispute. That would happen in any estate, slight difference of opinion. Two women sharing a house that was unsuitable for either of them, somebody walking high heels, the other one complaining, usual. Anyway, they decided they would trump this up and make it out to be something it wasn't. And they would show that they were going to be the first local authority that would evict somebody for antisocial behaviour. At the same time, Keith, might I tell you, there was serious antisocial behaviour going on in the city, in a particular estate. And it was the other serious antisocial behaviour, the councillors were asking about it, was so serious that the outcome of that were 2 murders. Not one, in two different places, not one, but 2, because the council weren't doing their job, right? But they decided to go for the soft option. And then she was alone, as she said herself, unresourced, but they didn't like the idea of being held accountable for under the civil equity bill, which made them explain why they should be doing what they weren't doing. And rather than address it, and rather than do what they should do, the egos were so big, they decided, we want to film that, we will evict her. And they got their way, because the woman committed suicide. They went into court, they asked me, then they had no evidence, so they're fabricating stuff. And I was asked to meet up with her neighbour, and I won't bore you with the details on the book, and manufactured this statement for the courts. They manufactured a complete false account. The woman, it was an off-the-record rant. They swore to the judge that this was true, was an accurate account. This one was absolutely shocking. And they fooled the judge, the first judge threw it out. They fooled the judge into giving an eviction order. They pursued that with great vigour. They got rid of me in the meantime. Not that I could have done anything about it. I did my best. And the notes I found later written by the solicitor was that I was argumentative, belligerent, and not of much assistance in this eviction. I'm proud to say I wasn't.
Yeah, good. And Breed,
proud to say it.
So Breed Cummins died by suicide.
By suicide on the 4th of December, on 2004, when they went down to collect the keys of this flat. They took her right through the hoops. The judge, I have to say, wouldn't be known for making many mistakes, but she made a very bad one on that one. The circles wagoned. They got figure this. They got a social worker to make a report from a person who was classified as being extremely challenged and non-verbal. They took a report from a non-verbal person and used that in court as evidence. And that's the kind of stuff that went on. But I will not sign the false.
We might have lost. I think I might have lost Julie momentarily. Hopefully she'll come back. Julie, if you can hear me, could be this. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but are Galway City Council listening? Have they cut the broadcast? Let me just remove Julie and see if she can come back. We'll stand by for. So, what we've heard from Julie Grace so far, and she has got a book out which we will talk about in just a little while. Julie Grace is a whistleblower. And the reason we're talking to Julie is because we as a country need to value what the whistleblowers bring, what they do for us. They're much maligned. I mean, they're talked down. There's incidents of whistleblowers being labeled terrible things like pedophiles and troublemakers, and we need troublemakers. And if somebody's ego or somebody is too lazy in the council and this person is a troublemaker because they keep doing their goddamn job, that's a good thing. It seems that there's a lot of corrupt activity amongst our elected officials. And as Julie said, it seems to be even more so with the local county councils. And as I said, I have firsthand, I've spoken to somebody who was elected as an official in a county council and was starting to question things. And I mean, she was basically kind of hounded out of being an elected official. So, you know, if you ever wonder why we elect certain people and certain types of people, I would suggest that those people are the ones who toe the line. So if you toe the line, you're a local councillor, you toe the line, you toe the line, you get here, you toe the line, you get here, you toe the line, you get here. You're not a troublemaker. So we end up with people who are ineffective. Or we end up with Michael Lowry, who's like really effective, but like just kind of, you know, is there for himself, you know? So all of this activity, the way we run the country, the decisions we make, how we, you know, view troublemakers, whistleblowers, it has all led to this point in our country where we can't even build a hospital. We can't even find out what the inside of a nursing home is like. We can't even find out the details of loved ones who died in care homes during COVID. People looking for information about loved ones who died in care homes during COVID are being called, it's been referred to as a witch hunt. And now we look at the mother and baby home, we look at Tuam, and we look at what's happening there. They're going to bury that information. A lot of the information hasn't even been made available. We're doing it again. We look at the Magdalene laundries, we look at that report, and we look at our own minister or Taoiseach or whatever, or Taoiseach or whatever he was at the time. I think it was Micheál Martin who said, he said that we were all, everybody in the country was responsible for that. No, we weren't. Our elected officials were responsible for that, and the church were responsible for that. So there was nothing we could do. Let me just see if I can find Julie. I don't know. Oh, maybe my. I'll just see if she can log. Julie, if you can hear me, just can you log out and log back in again? We'll just try and get her back on because I think it'd be worth it. Maybe it was maybe my internet dropped momentarily. So, and then as you heard from Julie talking about her working in Galway County Council and somebody who was looking for their rights to be recognised, looking for their house to be of a certain standard. They take the county council to court. Breed Cummins is her name, and she dies by suicide because they have her evicted. They make an example of her. They don't make an example of the actual troublemakers who, you know, as Julie says, 2 people died during, you know, actual disturbances in another area of Galway. They don't make an example of them for being, you know, difficult people. They make an example of this woman who lived alone and didn't have any money, and it was an easy target, but she was a troublemaker. So, I mean, it's just very sad. It's just very sad that this is who we are now. Do you know what I mean? It's very sad that corruption in Ireland has gotten to this level. and that we're powerless. And then I'm talking to people, and I'm not even sure that the elected officials are the people who are able to make any decisions at all. So where does that leave us? Does the vote not even count? I just think it's really important. And I'd imagine most people watching this are going, yeah, well, I maybe I'm preaching to the converted, but I think it's really important that we revisit our thoughts on whistleblowers. We go back to the whistleblowers, you know, the Garda, the penalty points problem. Was it John Wilson? John Wilson, ex-Garda whistleblower, penalty point scandal. Alan Maughan, who we spoke on here, VAT fraud exposer. Jonathan Sugarman, former UniCredit risk manager. This is a cultural thing, you know. We don't like we don't like troublemakers. We don't like even. I'm just going to talk to Julie here. Just make a cup of tea. Hello, Julie. How are you? I can't seem to. Are you still there? Well, I might have to send you the link again. Can you hold on? Can you log out and log back in again, or that'd be great. Thanks a lot. Okay, bye. There you go. Modern technology. You wouldn't get this on RT, would you? And for some reason, my experience growing up in Ireland and reading about whistleblowers is that they were just difficult people. They were just troublemakers. They were just a problem, you know. They were like, can you just let us get on with it? Can you just stop going on about the penalty points thing, you know? Like, you're just do what the rest of us are doing. So we have to make a decision. Even I have to make a decision as a citizen of Ireland. Like, is that what I want? Is it so awkward for me to think about somebody being a troublemaker and making someone's job awkward, or trying to like speak up about some kind of corruption, that it's so awkward for me that I'm so embarrassed, like this third level embarrassment, that I'm going to say, no, I'd rather have a corrupt Ireland than have whistleblowers. I'd rather have a corrupt country than troublemakers, because it makes me feel uneasy and awkward and weird and embarrassed on their behalf. We don't like people who lift their heads above the parapet. Like, just be glad for what you have and stop trying to cause trouble. I mean, is that who we are, or is the country so corrupt that we just don't have any power? I mean, these are all questions we need to be asking ourselves. These are the things we need to be thinking about. What is our own personal responsibility in this? How can I affect change? Should it be a case that everybody in every workplace and every organization should feel free to be a whistleblower, to speak up when they see injustices? I mean, I've worked places and I've left places because I knew that they weren't interested in listening to me about how I felt the environment was toxic and was bad for people, and people were sick because they worked in this place. And the only people benefiting was, well, I don't know if anybody was benefiting. You might say, well, the CEO was benefiting or the management team were benefiting because they were earning more money, but like, I wouldn't, all the money in the world wouldn't keep me in a place where the environment was toxic and where I felt sick going in every day. Let me just send this link again and see if it works. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to end this broadcast. Do join. You'll see you there. If you're watching on X or you're watching on Instagram, wherever you're watching, if you're watching on YouTube, do join us again. I'm going to get Julie back on and we'll continue this. We'll call it part 2. Thanks for your patience.